Alright, so now we are going to continue our button-up shirt. Alright, last thing we have to do is the sleeve, which will have a cuff and a placket. We'll add some pleats in as well. So we're going to start with our sleeve sloper, and we're going to trace this off onto a piece of paper. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, that looks good. We can remove the sloper. And we'll go ahead and true all our lines. There we go. Alright, so the first thing we need to determine is how wide our cuff is going to be. Alright, so that cuff could be 1.5 inches, 2 inches, 3 inches, whatever your design dictates. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a cuff that is, let's do a cuff that's 2 1/4 inches wide. Sorry, 2 3/4 inches wide. So 1, 2 3/4. And I'm going to mark that right on here. So again, 2 3/4 inches. There's my 2 marks. I'm just measuring off the hem of the sleeve. And let's go ahead and mark that. Okay. So we'll be working from this blue line right here. All right. Eventually we'll remove this part. Okay, because that's where the cuff is going to be. All right, so let's go ahead. What we're going to do now is add in a placket. That's the opening that usually has one button in it, and it opens it up so the wearer can get their hand through the sleeve. So to find that, first of all, that's in the back of the sleeve. Okay, so here's our 2 directional notches up here. This is the back of our sleeve. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this corner here, or intersection, to this center intersection here to determine the center of the back of my sleeve. So let's go ahead and do that. There, and crease it. There we go. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and create what will become the opening for the placket. Okay, so here is the center right there, and this opening can be a couple different measurements. I'm going to make it 4 inches, so I'll draw a line a little longer than I need it. Okay, and I'll measure up again from what will be the bottom of my sleeve, or where my sleeve attaches to my cuff, 4 inches, like so, and mark. All right. I'm going to have a placket when it's done. I want it to be 1 inch. So from other side of this, I'm going to measure out 1/2 inch. So let's go ahead and do that and draw a line parallel to it. Okay, I'm doing this on both sides of that center line that we drew. And then again, the top. There we go. Okay. So this will be where our placket sews into. Okay, this inch here. All right. Okay, next we're going to add some pleats into this as well. All right, this is a pretty wide sleeve, I think. So let's go ahead and add in 2 pleats. All right, these pleats are going to be 1/2 inch pleats, so we'll need a total of 1 inch and 1 inch. Okay, so I want my first pleat to start in between my placket and the center line. So again, I'm going to fold over this point of where my placket is, this side of my placket, to meet the center of the sleeve so that I can find the center mark. Okay, so let's go ahead, fold that over, and line those 2 up, and just give a crease. So, alright, so I'll just mark that in red. Okay, so that will be the center of my first pleat, and this is going to be a 1/2 inch pleat. So I'm going to total. So I need total of 1 inch because it's going to be 1/2 inch finish. So I'm going to measure out one side of that center point, 1/2 inch, and then on the other side also 1/2 inch. Okay, Now let's go ahead and make another pleat. I'm going to do 2 pleats. Here, I'm going to put a 1/2 inch in between them. So there we go. All right, and then I'll mark, so this is the beginning of my next pleat. I'll mark a center line of that pleat. I'll do that in red again. And then we'll go another 1/2 inch, like so. All right, and the pleats are going to fold towards the back, or pleat towards the back. All right. So let's now go ahead and create the actual placket for the sleeve, okay? And then we'll come back and we'll do our cuff. Okay, so I'm going to grab a piece of paper. Okay, so this is going to be made up of 2 parts. All right, you have the part that's over this, and usually you'll notice, if you remember a sleeve, it comes up to a point like this, and it has this kind of housing on top of it. And that's where all the ends of the inside part of the placket, or the underside and the outside, end up being housed inside there. So it's a nice clean finish. All right. All right, so I have the underside of the placket and then the top of it. Okay, so I'll need 2 pieces of paper. This is what we'll do. I'll just trace this on. You can do it 2 ways. You can either put your paper under here and use a tracing wheel, okay? Or you can just measure this rectangle and draw that, okay? I like using a tracing wheel, so that's what I'm going to do. Make sure I give myself enough room. There we go. And I'm just going to trace off this rectangle. And I don't really need to trace off the whole thing, just the intersecting corners of it. That's all I need. And I'm just going to mark that center line too, just in case I need it for some reason. And I do that through 2 pieces of paper. Okay, so let's put the sleeve aside for just a second. All right, these are going to be 1 inch wide because the placket we're doing is 1 inch. Let's do the underpiece first. Okay, so let's go ahead and true that. Okay, right there. Like so. Okay. Okay, here's the top of it right here. I'm going to mark that in red. And then we're going to add another 3/8 on top of that, because that's going to be the part that gets hidden inside the housing of the placket. So there's 3/8. All right. At the bottom, this is where it connects to the cuff, right there. And we're going to add a 1/2 inch seam allowance on the bottom of that. Okay. And then here on this side, we're going to add a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so this is a 3/8 inch extension, and then we have a 1/4 inch, and then we have a 1/2 inch seam allowance. All right, we need to make a full one of these. This is only half of it. So let's go ahead, oops, and on this side right here, we're going to fold right on this line. There we go. Let's crease that line now. And we'll cut this out. And let's notch it as well. Okay, so we'll notch our seam allowance here. This is where the extension starts, and we have seam allowance here, and seam allowance here. I also want to notch that fold line, like knowing where it's going to fold. There we go. Okay, and that's the underside of the placket. This line will be our grain line. Okay, let's put that aside and let's do the top part of our placket. So I have this other one I've already marked. Let's go ahead and true it. Okay. This is the bottom right here. And then here's the top. Okay. That housing that's going to house everything, let's go ahead and make that about, I think 3/4 is plenty. Probably even make it a 1/2 inch. Okay, let's do 3/4. Okay. And then let's add another 1/4 onto that. Right there. Okay. I marked my center line. I'm going to go and just lightly draw that up so I can find the center up here. Okay. And what I'm going to do is from that part, from the center part, I'm going to connect back down at an angle. Okay. Now, again, this part of the placket, it doesn't have to be, a lot of them you see come to a point like this. It doesn't have to do this. It could be just a flat, straight, like this here. It could have just been flat. I could have curved it. You could have done anything you really wanted there. Okay? All right. So, on this side, we're going to start adding seam allowance. I'm going to add a 1/4 here. Like so. At the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and add 1/2 inch, because that sews into the cuff. All right? And then we're going to add a 1/4 here. And a 1/4 here. Okay, and then I'll just draw a 1/4 down here. This may change a little bit on the side in just a moment. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and fold this as well, right on this line, because we need the underneath part. Go. And I'm going to transfer my stitching lines right on through. Okay, I don't need to transfer this housing, but this red line right here where it originally stopped, I'm going to transfer that through. Okay, open that back up. And this from this fold right here, I should be able to measure over and have 1 inch. Yep, that works out perfectly. There we go. I'm going to extend this red line right across, like so. And if you remember on this one, we added that 3/8 of an inch extension. That's what we're going to do right here, is add a 3/8 inch extension. Because that will also get housed right in here. Okay. What will end up happening is we'll end up clipping right down to this corner right there. Okay. When we go to put it in. All right, and let's go ahead and add on a 1/4 of an inch onto this side of seam allowance. So, extend all our lines out. Stitching line there. All right, and there we go. This is the part that goes over, or will be on the outside. All right, so let's grab our sleeve. This will be grain line right here. Again, you can do a lot of different things with these. You can cut them on bias. You can cut them different color for the rest of the shirt. Lots of ways to design with those. Okay, so you'll see, again, these will sew here. Remember, we have 1 inch here, all right? So that's why these are 1 inch. Okay, and this will sew on this side and line up like that. And then this one, okay, and this is the seam allowance down here that goes into the cuff. This one is the one that's on top. And everything, all this extra here and underneath there gets housed inside this. Okay. open up. Okay. We're going to come back here and we'll add on 1/4 inch seam allowance along here. But first I want to do my cuff and then we'll go ahead and do that. Okay. So let's just put these aside for one moment. Okay. Now we're going to do our cuff. Let's fold out our 2 pleats here. All right. So they're going to fold towards the back of the sleeve. I'm going to go ahead and score it just to make it a little easier. Fold them out. There's one. And here's my second one. Okay, again with the pleats, I put these pretty much right on top of each other. If I want to have like a 1/2 inch space in between them, I could have done that. Okay, so again, this is just one example of how to do this. Okay, so now that we've pleated this, what we need to do is measure the distance for our cuff. The way this works is our cuff is actually going to underlap itself or overlap itself. So it's going to start on this side of the placket, come all the way around to that side of the placket. So let's go ahead and measure. So we're going to start right here at this side, okay? And we're going to measure how far around or how long this line is. Let's move this up a little. Nice and straight. So if I start 1, and we're just going to measure all the way 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We'll call that 8 inches, okay? So that's 8 inches there, and then we're going to come on to this side and continue measuring, and we're going to go all the way to this side of the placket now. Let's go ahead and do that. So it's 1, 2, 3, 3 and 7/8 it looks like, right? 1, 2, 3 and 7/8. So we have 8 and then 3 and 7/8 of an inch. So 8 plus 3, 9, 10, 11 and 7/8. So 11 and 7/8. Okay. Let's go ahead and put this aside for a second. Grab another piece of paper. All right. So we want 11 and 7/8. That's how long we want a line. So let's go ahead and start drafting this. First thing I'm going to do is draw a line longer than I need it. I'll do it right here. And then I'm going to mark one side of that line, just like so. And now from this mark, I'll measure over 11 and 7/8. So there's 11 and there's 7/8. Mark right here, okay? How wide is our cuff? It's going to be 2 3/4, which we established already. So I'm going to measure up from that line, 2 3/4 there. And then here as well, 2 3/4, mark that. And let's connect those two lines together. All right, and then our 2 marks that we start off with, let's square those up right at the top of the cuff. And right here as well. Okay, Now let's make sure this works. Before we do anything else, I'm gonna go ahead and fold it out. Or fold one side under, the top part of it under. Okay. Now what happens is it's supposed to overlap itself. The side that's on top will have the button hole, and then the side underneath will have the button. So I'm going to start here, where we started our measurement. And let's just walk this out. I'm going to actually mark where that first pleat starts. And let's mark here, the edge of the sleeve. Bring this mark over here. Line it up. And it looks good. It works. It lines up. Okay. So our cuff is good. What we can do is add. Well, before we add 1/2 inch seam allowance. So what's going to happen here, remember, is we're going to have a button and buttonhole. Okay. So we basically have a 1 inch underlap and overlap, however you want to say. So I'm just going to mark that on each side. Okay, that's where my first pleat begins. So this is the top. This is where the buttonhole will go. Okay, and that I'm just going to mark right here. Well, actually, let's find the center of the placket first. I'm just going to fold that in half. Do the same thing here. Okay. So this placket will overlap by 1/8 of an inch, or the buttonhole will. And let's just say it's a 1/2 inch button, so I need 5/8. So from that part over, I have a 1/2 inch. Here, I got 1/8. And right there. And then, of course, my button would be centered right on this part here. Okay? And that's where if it was a 1/2 inch button, would go. Okay? And again, I have a notch right here indicating that lines up with that first pleat. And then also I have a notch here indicating that lines up with the underarm. Okay? Seam, let's add 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around. Okay? And then, depending on your design and everything, grain line can go many different ways, but we'll just do it going down the center like so. Okay? And I can just quickly cut this out. Alright, so there is our cuff. Alright, we just need to add seam allowance to the sleeve. Alright, if you want, you can unpin these and then add your seam allowance and cut it out. I'm just going to go ahead and unpin them. So, and we're adding 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around. Simple enough. Alright, now we need to add seam allowance here inside this placket. Okay, what we're going to do, I'll do this in a different color, is we're going to reduce these sides to 1/4 of an inch. Like so. In here, I can add I'll leave 3/8 like I did at the top of the other. Because what will happen is this, in the center, will get cut to a point. And we'll slash down to a point. Okay, and this will end up folding up into that housing. Okay, all this is going to get cut out. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and cut this out. All right, and now we're going to cut out here in the placket this seam allowance. Come out right like this. Again, it's just gonna clip right in there, right in there. When eventually, so we don't have to clip that for the pattern, but I just want you to see, because that would go up like this. Okay. All right, so there we go. There's our sleeve. All right. This is where our placket will go, and then we have 2 pleats, and we cut off the cuff, and then we also have our placket. Okay, this piece, 2 pieces of our placket, and then our cuff as well. Okay, so we've now gone ahead and drafted the sleeve, placket, and the cuff. Okay, that's it.